Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the Planning and Development Committee to order. Can you please do a roll call?
Silkitis.
Here.
Calamaris.
Here.
Hayleitner.
Here.
Bongard.
Here.
Bancroft.
Here.
Lencioni.
Here.
Petrilla.
Here.
Warball.
Here.
Bester.
Here.
Weber.
Here. Thank you very much. We do have a quorum. First up, I would like a motion and a second for the omnibus vote.
Move for approval.
Second. Moved by Bester, seconded by Lencioni. We have everybody here tonight. To all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you very much. First up is item 4A. That's going to be presented by Ellen.
Good evening. Munhall Glen is a 50-lot subdivision on the east side, approved as a planned unit development in 2020. The developer is Earhart Construction Corp. Court Earhart is requesting an amendment to the Munhall Glen PUD. Proposed is to reduce the front and exterior side yards for lots 44 and 45, which are corner lots. This proposed change would reduce the building setback to a minimum of 10 feet at the exterior curves of the lots. The PUD currently requires 20 foot from the front and 15 foot from the exterior side. This reduced setback would apply only around the curve of the lots. A minor subdivision final plat has also been submitted to replat the two lots to reflect the amended building setbacks. Plan Commission held a public hearing on December 6th and voted 7-0 to recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there any questions on this topic? Okay. I'll ask for a motion and a second.
Move for approval.
Second. Moved by Rita, seconded by Todd. Roll call, please.
Weber.
Yes.
Silkitis.
Yes.
Calamaris.
Yes.
Hayleitner.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Bancroft.
Yes.
Lencioni. Petrilla.
Yes.
Warball.
Yes.
Bestner.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item, 4B. Rachel's going to be presenting that one.
Yes. Good evening. The subject property is Lot 3 of the Foxfield Commons PUD, which is located in the northwest corner of Foxfield Road and Courtyard Drive. Jeff Kilberg has filed an application as part of Apex Design for a PUD preliminary plan proposing to develop the property with a dental clinic called Ignite Oral Surgery Center. The proposed has a 6,607 square foot building. It also has a private garage and a 3,800 square foot future expansion. It does connect the missing sidewalk portion along Foxfield Road with an internal walk connecting to the building. It does have a drive-up, drop-off area and access is off of Courtyard Drive, not Foxfield Road. It's a modern-style building composed of stone and James Hardy siding. City staff has reviewed the plans and provided the applicant with some comments. Most are technical in nature, but there are two that will need to be addressed prior to City Council approval. One is from the fire department that has requested that one-way access aisle should be a minimum of 20 feet and all other aisles should be 24 feet. And then from the planning department, an increase in clustered landscaping along Foxfield Drive. The Plan Commission recommended approval on December 7th. Unanimously, and they had minor comments in regards to proposed tree species and landscaping, but the applicant was open to those requests. He is here tonight if you have any additional questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Rita.
Real quick, I know you said it. Did you say they're completing the sidewalk then in that piece?
They are completing the sidewalk
Perfect.
along Foxfield
Perfect.
Road, but
Good.
not Courtyard Drive since there isn't
No, right.
sidewalk
Just,
along
yeah,
that
right.
road yet.
Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion.
Yep. Move for approval.
Second. So moved by Rita, seconded by David. Roll call, please.
Weber.
I don't vote on this unless it's a tiebreaker.
Oh, okay. Silkitis. Silkitis.
Yes.
Calamaris.
Yes.
Hayleitner.
Yes.
Bongard.
Yes.
Bancroft.
Yes.
Lencioni.
Yep.
Petrilla.
Yes.
Warball.
Yes.
Bestner.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries. Moving along to item 4C, Ellen's going to present the St. Charles Affordable Housing Analysis.
Thank you.
St. Charles Housing Affordability Analysis is performed each year to inform the city's decisions regarding housing policies and programs, and also to track the city's standing with respect to the State of Illinois' Affordable Housing Planning and Appeals Act. This act requires communities to have a housing stock that is at least 10% affordable. Affordable housing is defined as housing that has a sale price or rental amount that is within the means of a household at or below 80% of the area median income for owner-occupied units and 60% area median income for rental units. To be considered affordable, housing costs cannot exceed 30% of a household's annual income. This year's finding is that 17% of St. Charles housing stock is considered affordable, and that's based on the calculations as outlined in the report. This includes rental and owner-occupied units. On the ownership side, 17.3% of owner-occupied units are considered affordable, up from 10.8% last year. This increase in affordability is attributed to two items, the first being an increase in area median income, which has resulted in a higher affordable home price, and also the fact that the Township Assessor's market value data, which is used in the affordability calculation, is based on the previous 3 years of sales data. So that is 2019 to 2021, meaning that current housing market conditions are not fully reflected. Now, on the rental side, 16.1% of units are considered affordable, up from 12% last year. Again, this increase is due to a higher area median income, despite a trend of rising rents across the apartment communities in St. Charles. The overall 17% affordability finding indicates that St. Charles is in compliance with the Affordable Housing Planning and Appeals Act. However, staff does expect affordability findings, particularly on the home ownership side, to decrease in coming years once the current housing market trends are fully accounted for in the data. Next December, the Illinois Housing Development Authority is expected to release an updated listing of each community's affordable housing share to determine official compliance with the state act.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Go ahead, Brian.
Perhaps I missed it, but what is the balance in the Housing Trust Fund at this point?
The balance at this point, I can get exact numbers for you, but upwards of $2 million.
$2 million?
Yes, we recently received a contribution for the Springs of St. Charles development, but we do expect to bring forward a discussion on the inclusionary housing fee in lieu next meeting. Okay. And then we'll provide that information.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Go ahead, Paul.
I have one comment to make, just because, since we're taking a look at it, I love, and I'm sure with price escalations and a lot of things, because I know we were nervous about where our ratios would come in, and it sounds great, but with the affordable housing fund that we have, and not for Housing Commission, which I sit on, and it's a tough job and the rest of it, but I think that we need to take a look at, we get those funds and we hold them in trust to do good things with, and I think that we need to work globally as hard as possible to put those funds in service. Those are the reasons that we got those funds. I think there's a lot of good that we can do with it, but the city really does need to find a way to use those funds as they're intended to help the people. That's what it's there for, and I think that needs to be a huge priority.
Yep. Go ahead, Tom.
So the only question I have is, I know in Cook County, on apartments that we've developed, we've made a decision to put in all of the inclusionary housing within our apartment communities at Draper and Kramer. And now the state of Illinois has a large sort of tax break overlay that they've done on it that actually makes it somewhat feasible to do. I just want to make sure staff's up to speed on that. And so when developers come and they start thinking about doing a fee in lieu or whatever the process is, that we're educated enough to bring that to their attention, because it may now be actually economically feasible with tax breaks that they're getting to develop those within their projects.
Thank you. Yes, I had heard of that, and we'll make sure to keep the developers apprised as well.
Yep.
I'll be happy to connect you. I got a whole team that spent a lot of time educating and could save a lot of time for staff. So.
Sure. Thank you.
Go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, I know that, just Todd's point too, that our senior developments have some sort of a tax credit basis for getting their financing. I wanted to compliment the group along with Alderman Lencioni, and that I liked that when I read it, that the Housing Commission concludes in their report that we need to match supply and demand. And I like that moving forward, that's something that the group's going to work on. Yeah, that's great. And I also like the admission, you said it in your report, that there's a limited nature of the information. And so we may not, just kind of tippy-toe forward with all that. And also the group's conclusion that because this is all based on numbers for the metro Chicagoland area, which always seems a little wacky to me, but that being said, that the group is also aware, are we meeting the needs of our community? And I like that they're moving forward and going to look into that. So, thanks, Ellen.
Ellen, you would mention that you guys will be coming in front of us again relatively soon. Do you know when that'll be?
We're expecting January.
Okay. Thank you very much. There's no action needed on that item. That was just for information purposes only. Thank you very much. Next up, we have item 4. Rachel's going to present that. It's in regards to the Historic Preservation Commission's recommendation to approve a facade improvement grant agreement for 17 North 2nd Avenue.
Yes, Nancy Knapp has requested a facade improvement grant for her property at 17 North 2nd Avenue. The work includes replacing the rotting siding with the same wood material, restoring and replacing wood windows with like replacements, and providing age-appropriate gutters and masonry work to the chimney. The Historic Commission reviewed the project on December 7th and unanimously recommended approval, noting that the money will be spent on restoration, preservation, and architectural enhancements of a historic building consistent with the grant program. You'll note that some of the items in the scope were removed, such as the fencing, the roofing, and the signs, as the Historic Commission didn't feel like those were eligible improvements. The total project cost with those removed is $65,837. They are eligible to receive the max grant amount of $20,000 based on the 50% reimbursement for exterior restoration. I will note that with that amount, we will have exasperated all of our commercial funding for this fiscal year, and it will re-up in May. And then with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions regarding that? I think it's a great program. I love to see this happen. I love to see this is one of the programs that I think is very practical, and we get to see the improvements done right away. So with that, I'll ask for a motion.
Move for approval.
Moved by Lencioni.
Second.
By Brian Wirball. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, just real quick. In the executive summary, it says budgeted amount was $40,000 for the fiscal year, and there's 20 remaining?
Yes.
Is that this 20, or is it 20?
This 20. So with this,
Okay.
we will have exasperated all the funds.
Okay.
Yes, we gave another commercial grant earlier in the year to another commercial property for $20,000.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. Okay, thank you very much. Next up, item 4S, Derek, our Economic Development Director, is going to present some options to us, and we're going to have a discussion.
Thank you, Chairman. Derek Conley, Economic Development Director. This is pertaining to the downtown riverfront property. It's more commonly known as the former police department site. We really have 2 items here. Neither item we're really requesting some type of formal action, but we are seeking direction from council on as staff. So number 1, we're looking at consideration of conducting a feasibility study. So this has been something that's been discussed at previous meetings as well as with staff as far as how do we move forward with this RFC process, and do we need more information? Something that's come up is conducting a feasibility study or conducting a series of feasibility studies to address or to find out more information about the environmental of this site, whether there are traffic concerns, what are their utility concerns, and what are the cost implication of those of all those concerns combined, what needs to happen. So staff is supportive of gathering more information and bringing it back to council. There is a caveat of what our recommendation is. We would prefer not to do a series of different studies, but really just go to one firm and have that firm conduct all those studies together. We don't want each study to be done in a vacuum. We want one firm looking at all these because they're probably going to be interconnected and come back with one recommendation. The cost of this is a little bit up in the air. It depends on how in depth and how many studies we would like this firm to do, but we're ranging it between $50,000 and $125,000. As far as the timeline would go for this, if we get council direction tonight to go through some type of feasibility study with a firm, we would probably go through the RFP process just to select that planning firm that would probably have an engineering arm. And then we don't have anything budgeted, so we'd probably do the RFP in early 2023, and then next fiscal year we would award a contract, and then it could take up to 6 months or maybe even a little bit longer in order to get a study that we would bring back to City Council. So that is the timeline as far as the feasibility study would go. The other item is simply evaluation of the existing proposals. As council knows, we have 2 proposals out there that council is still considering, and staff would just like direction on whether or not the city council should take action regarding the existing proposals. So does council feel comfortable kind of having a straw poll tonight saying on the next agenda would we like to have some type of action on what to do with those proposals? And with that, that concludes my presentation. I can take any questions.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I have comments, which I'd like to hear, a lot of feedback on. But we've been up here for, obviously this is an important topic, and I've got a lot of thoughts because there have been comments at times where it's time to listen to the comment, and this is, time where we're gonna talk about it. Thank goodness. So first of all, some things to confirm and ask. So right now we have 2 proposals that have been talked about and presented. Do either of them have any official status with the city? There's no, we don't have a responsibility to act on anything that, has been proposed up to this point. Is that correct?
We haven't committed to giving them any further direction.
It's not in the process, it's not in planning. The request for concept, at the end of it says that we don't have responsibility to do anything after you submit it. So right now, as things stand, it's not like there's an open item. We've listened to the concept, and we can either do something or nothing, which would be similar to any situation. There's nothing that we need to do. We're honestly complete unless we open something up. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. So, and that's one thing that I want everybody to kind of understand is we're not waiting to do anything. There aren't, because I know there's been talk about removing proposals or what comes next. And right now, if we don't do anything, that's nothing. So one of the considerations is to take a vote on, either doing something or not doing something. And I can say right now, I'm not moving forward with anything because there's really nothing to do. And to take a vote, I think, doesn't make sense because I also wouldn't want to put in legislation about people, whether they can have dinosaurs or not. I'm not in favor of legislating on things that are not actually before us. And right now, neither of these proposals are before us. So the way that I see it is there's really nothing to be done. I am in favor because we take a look at this consideration because the city owns this property, it's on the river, in going and getting as much guidance as we can objectively on what should actually go there. And I think that that's a big part of what's brought everybody forward is, you ask for proposals, we talk about some things that you're like, okay, we're looking for what to do, but, I personally, I can tell you I don't know what should happen. I mean, you take a look and there's pros and cons. And I think we got into this hoping that would be a discussion. Well, to branch off of that, I also want to address the discussion because I think it's great that we've got so much feedback. It's great that citizens have gotten really involved, and we've listened. I've listened. I know I have. Because there's things that you're trying to be open-minded and listening to. But there's one thing that I do want to say in all of that. I mean, there have been really good arguments that I've listened to. And there's other arguments that have led me to a spot where I was afraid that we were moving down into, that if they go too far, it could become a scorched earth situation. And I just want to remind everybody, we need to be able to listen to ideas and just trust. I think the process has worked good. We've all been here and listened. Everybody's had an opportunity to say things. And I know my mind has been shaped a lot by that. But let's just always remember that we're neighbors, give each other the benefit of the doubt, realize that, where we're at in a process. There's no save this and do this. We can't be afraid of talking about ideas. And I want people to really think about that. Make really good arguments, those great arguments. I mean, when I take a look at that property, and I look at density, is we used to have a police department down there. Okay, how dense is that? What can we match? What can it handle? But I feel like I don't know. I know that there's problems in the intersection. I want to understand that. I think that's the smart thing to do first, and I think a lot of that encouragement has come from, the community and saying, make sure that you know what you're doing. Heard, absolutely. But let's just remember that we're neighbors too. Trust this process because it's worked great, because I heard at times there was questions about visibility or what happened. I think it's happened really well, and I think that we all deserve to trust each other and remember we're really good neighbors. We do care about each other, and let's go forward, continuing to talk, but keep that idea, and as options come out, the best idea is going to win, and to trust each other and stay together, I think is most important. But right now, I don't think that there's anything to do with that other than figure out what works the best.
Okay.
I would like to at least hear everyone's input on just the,
Yes.
just sticking with the first item,
Right.
as far as the feasibility.
Yeah,
I know,
that's my point.
Rita, this
Yeah.
was an original thing that you had brought up
Right.
last meeting, so I would definitely like.
No, and I just want to say that what goes there isn't part of a feasibility study, to Mr. Lencioni's point. I think what you're talking about, Derek, is doing studies, what was originally going to be done when this was an RFP before it was an RFC, correct? That was, so this isn't, going right at this level, what we're discussing right now has nothing to do with what's going to go on the property. It's what is the property right now, right?
I think a good way of putting it is, what is the capacity of the site? How much can it hold as far as traffic goes, as far as utilities and things of that nature?
So not used per se, just...
we could engage with this firm and say, okay, look, we have a feasibility. Do you want to do a couple of concepts of what that would look like? If they say it could look like X, okay, show us that it would look like that. That is something that we could ask for, not necessarily have to.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't even thinking of going that far. I was just, looking to see what's underground, and can we move the utilities or that kind of thing. So just kind of getting as to the first point,
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
So just, obviously, you would be in support of staff.
Oh, 100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Ryan.
the original RFP called for the developers to be charged with handling studies, correct?
I'll have to,
No, the city was.
I'll have to defer to Community Development Director. I wasn't here for that.
Ask that question again.
So just to clarify, because there was some confusion, if the city was going to be responsible for the original RFP for doing studies, or if it was going to be the responsibility of the developers, whoever we picked.
Yeah, so during the initial discussions of the RFP, the concept at the time was that the city was going to proceed with demolition of the buildings, which would have then involved some analysis of the site and environmental considerations. And so because of that demolition, we would have engaged in some of those studies at that time. But because the demolition was taken out of the budget, we didn't proceed with that. The decision was made to withhold conducting those studies so we saw what the responses were when there was a discussion about changing it to a request for concepts.
Does that help?
Sure.
Yeah. So moving along, I would like to hear input from everybody, at least on the feasibility part of it.
Feasibility study is a great idea, but we still need to address the other problem about the two proposals that are out there. If we're going to do a study, then we're going to ask for new guidelines for the proposals. So therefore, we're going to start, in my opinion, we start fresh. If these developers want to reapply, that's great. Let them reapply. But I think we need to narrow down the focus. I believe that we should have a vote on that to see if we should.
So I want to keep them both separate.
Are we going to do a separate one then?
Yes, I would like to keep.
Okay, then I will save my comments for the next one.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I'm answering your question. Yes, I'm in favor of the feasibility study, definitely.
Okay, Mr. Callahan?
Yeah, no, I 100% support the feasibility study. I've been saying it since day one. Let's look at the facts, let's look at the data, and let's determine what really should be going there. So for me, that makes the most sense.
Okay. You know where Rita stands, Ryan?
I would lean towards no right now, only because I think we're putting the cart before the horse. And that is, if we don't have direction from this council about making it a park or doing something that's already existing, I'm leery of, everybody wants more information, I get that. What can we build, what's the traffic impact across the board? But At the end of the day, if you don't have 10 people up here that are in support of developer, I'm leery of spending $100,000 to get information maybe that we don't need. So, yes, let's spend the money and do studies, but at the end of the day, if we end up in the same spot, that you have divided council on what you're gonna do, what was the spend for? To tell us that traffic might be impacted, might be bedrock under there? I'd like to have an idea, at least of a vision of where we'd like to go as a group before we start spending money on things we may not ultimately need.
Okay.
I'm done.
Is that an answer?
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to go?
Yeah, so I'm fine with the studies. I would add a few. So I would make sure, to Ryan's point, that something in a scope document reflects the fact that we're going to have some discussion about what the potential use is for the site. I know that other municipalities have, hired consultants, experts, whatever, that come up with, grand ideas in terms of what could be done in a particular site. This one on the river, I think, would be interesting to them. So I would add a use component to that and not make it just technical. And then I would also add some level of thumbnail, what a demolition, what makes it a developable site. So I would add that as a component to the study. And I think with those two things, I'd be supportive of it.
Paul?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very much in favor of studying what the limits and potential for the property is. As a lot of people up here know, I take a real cost-benefit look, background in finance and accounting, but, some of my goals are, I think that doing a study will help us understand, how we can make this the most productive situation. I don't know exactly what should go there, but I do know that, for the city to ask the residents to tear down a building, create a park when we're not a park district, I would like to see value to the city that takes the burden of paying for, reconstruction of the riverfront that's falling down, all the things that have to happen. I'd like to see a revenue element to it. I also don't want to blow out the neighborhood behind. I want to see something that works the best, but I also don't want to ask the residents to just pay for an idea that we think sounds great until we open our pocketbook and the whole idea doesn't make sense because, we had a pie in the sky idea that, it's irresponsible to pick up the price tag for. So I definitely want to see studies, and I'm also giving a little bit of look to, I want to be fiscally responsible with this as much as possible, and I think a little bit of money up front will help make sure that happens and balance our effects.
Okay. David?
Yes, I support a feasibility study. I like Todd's points too regarding the use component and what makes the site developable. So, with those additions, I would definitely support that.
Okay. Brian?
Question for staff. Who decided to divide Rita Payleitner's motion? Who made that decision?
I'll take that one over just because there were two separate items I think necessitated two separate discussions. They're just by nature just two separate issues.
Okay, because I see them as a comprehensive approach. One impacts the other. But to answer your question, I do support feasibility studies. What geotechnical analysis, traffic impact study, utility study, things of that nature are fine to get a general idea. Can we even dig? Right now, those two buildings don't even have basements. They're on slabs. So it's good to know, can you even dig over there? I don't know the answer to that. What concerns me when I hear potential use is who determines what that potential use is. What are we basing that on? And that's where the second motion comes into play when it comes to revising the RFCP that should be inclusive of community input in determining what that use should be. So I don't know if somebody's going to say, well, the potential use may be a hotel, so therefore do the study based on a hotel. Then there's an assumption that it may be a hotel. And I'm hearing up here that we're not doing anything, but if we're going to take potential uses, that concerns me where that can go. So in my opinion, I think the whole motion as a whole should be approved. I basically think it would serve everyone's best interest to just start the entire process over. So I think we have an opportunity tonight to restore the confidence of the residents in the RFC process. So I hope that we are committed to restoring that confidence with the residents, because I think it's eroded over the last few months, and I'm not blaming anybody up here. I just think, sometimes things don't work out the way they're supposed to, and we learn from it and we start over. And I think that's a good approach, just start over.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you. I'm in favor of the consideration to conduct the number of studies that were already mentioned. I'm mostly interested in the feasibility of what can be built there based on there's a well under there, the environmental aspect. So I'm really more interested in that aspect of it environmentally. So hopefully that'll be included. If we're going to talk about the part 2, the evaluation of existing proposals, I can go now or first.
No, I wanted to hear the first part, because I have a comment too. Are you good at the first part then?
Yeah, I want to find out the remediation, I guess is the best way to put it, of that piece of property.
Well, all I can say is, one of the things, I'm in, for peace of mind, a project that is this potential project, whatever ends up being, that's this big to the community, that means a lot to the community. We should do our due diligence and have somebody do a study. The only thing I would like to add is, although the original open house discussions with this potential use of this space in 2019 involved public, meetings, where people can, almost an open house. I would like to see where, if we do this again, where we can engage the public again, so that we are, for everyone else's sake, that things were not being transparent, and to instill the confidence within the communities to get some input. So to be part of that study is to get some residential input, I think would be very beneficial. So on the first item, obviously, you can tell you have support to go ahead and continue on that process.
Yeah, I think
on the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
The first one, I think.
Chairman, can I just get clarity? Since we started this and it seemed to have grown. I was mistaken. When we went from RFP to RFC, I got confused because I thought we were doing this anyway, and then I was told, no, it was pulled when it became an RFC versus an RFP. I didn't know it was based, as Russ just added, on the fact that we were going to demolish. But I appreciate you wanting to get one firm to do all the work. But I'm thinking that there has to be some increment to it, right? I mean, if we go and we do this, like I'm reading it from the old RFP, the city plans to obtain technical analysis to understand the soil structures at bedrock depth across the site. The results of the environmental and geotechnical studies will be shared once the reports become available. I mean, that seems to be like a ground zero. That to do a use study in conjunction doesn't make much sense, right? So with this, I guess I'm asking for the process. So we'll do that part first and then move on to potential
And Derek, if I can jump in real quick here.
Yeah.
I think what the goal will be is from a staff level, we will work up a draft RFP and then present it back to either at a committee
Okay, well, I'm
level
just
or
making sure that the clarity is there, that we're not,
Yeah, I think
asking
staff
too
would
much.
have some type of idea of what the process would be, but then also we would be looking at these planning firms and go off of their recommendation also. They may say, look, you need to do this before we jump the gun.
Right, and I guess I'm also, Heather, to your point, is looking at, why spend $100,000 when we can find out what we need for $50,000 first? That's what I'm saying, I guess, okay.
Yeah, so number one, 50, 100, I mean, we want to be fiscally responsible, but
Yeah.
obviously it's going to be worth spending the money and doing the investment. Since I threw out the potential use suggestion, I'll clarify it so my colleagues know where I was coming from on it. And it's typically what a company like that will do is do a survey of, there were 40, river towns in the country that had, developable land, and these are the types of things that they did. That's it.
Okay.
I don't know that it was, that they would conduct charrettes with us.
Okay.
What the options would be. It really is more an empirical, this is kind of what we saw.
Part of a report.
Right,
Yeah, okay,
exactly, just
okay,
as part
gotcha.
of what they do. I wouldn't suggest it be anything more, and I agree with, Alderman Weber, where he said, basically, look, you want to involve the community, you want to get the ideas. I think it would be helpful to, again, real estate is all unique, but it would be helpful to see what other communities did, that's all.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Derek, do you have enough direction on that one, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So now we will discuss the evaluation of, or the discussion of the evaluation of existing proposals. This time I'll start with Ed.
Oh, thank you. There's some perception out there that this body, this committee, might have made some rush to judgment in trying to move forward with either of these proposals. But there's also a perception out there in regards to some communications we've received from residents of the community too, that there's a push to remove these proposals. So over the years, I can't remember a time where we've been in a position kind of to dictate what we don't typically do. So in light of transparency, I think it was well stated earlier, we should just do the status quo right now. There's a timeline in place. That timeline, obviously, that was stated, if these feasibility studies go through, won't begin, if I'm not mistaken, until May 1st. And then from there, it's going to take 4 to 5 more months, you said. So nobody's rushing anything, and that's my opinion on it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
So in the request for concept proposals, the actual packet itself, on page 7, on the very bottom, it says, note, the city shall not be obligated to accept a proposal and reserves the right to reject all proposals. I think it would serve everyone's best interest to simply start the process over. Everyone is welcome to resubmit under the new guidelines of any RFCP, because whatever the studies come back, it's going to change the RFCP. And I think it would be fair to everyone if we just reassure the residents that, you know what, we're going to go back over this and do our due diligence. And obviously we've heard both plans are not been very receptive with the people in the community. So I think it's best to just say, hey, listen, we're going to make revisions to the RFCP. It'll go back out, and maybe it gets changed. It's opened up to benefactors, more public amenities, and really needs to be inclusive of community input, because at the end of the day, that property belongs to the people. So I just feel that it's not really rejecting the two proposals, because as Paul Lencioni, we really didn't accept them. It's just, listen, we're going to make some changes. If you want to come back under the new guidelines and resubmit, that's fine. Everybody is welcome to come back. So that's where I'm at on that piece right there.
Go ahead, David.
If we're, we're all in agreement that we want to do a feasibility study, we want to gather additional data. If we're going through the process of doing that and being educated more on what is there, and to Todd's point, not necessarily like codifying what we can put there, but getting more data in terms of, survey of peer communities and what have you. I think it's just prudent. I mean, again, dovetailing with what Brian mentioned, we should reboot and start anew. And with this new information, I think it's fundamentally fair to start over and ask the developers to come back. And if we get additional developers, we have a new economic development director, of course, who can help spread that net, if you will. I think that's prudent to understand and to get a better idea of what could go there ultimately.
Thank you. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. As I said in my first comments, but to specifically address this, I'm in favor of right now doing nothing, because right now there is nothing to do. Like to say, well, we're gonna revise the RFC and go forward. I don't even want to commit to doing anything until we've got some due diligence, done. So I'm right now, nothing has any status, and I'm okay with that. I think that's great. So with that, there was another comment that came up, and I mean, this is addressing to all of us to think on. Because there was the comment about restoring confidence, and I don't know how confidence was damaged. I think that this all worked really well. There's been great public comment. There has been great public comment. Nothing has been done. There has been fear. I'm just getting laughed at right now. No, but I mean,
Please be respectful to the speaker.
there you go. You're afraid of things. I mean, I've seen fear, and there's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing's happening. You know, there's nothing bad that's happened. There's been a lot of good conversation. There's been a lot of opportunity for people to talk, but we really do need to consider we're neighbors. You know, we're on the streets together. This all happened well, and to talk about a lack of confidence, that doesn't make any sense to me. You know, because everybody's been heard, and everybody's, comments have had great weight. You know, so that's my perspective on the whole thing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. Go ahead, Todd.
So I've thought a lot about it. I've talked to a fair amount of people about it. The truth is that we are not, from a timing standpoint, under, any kind of pain to make a decision. You're right, Paul. I think that's true. I think even though this room obviously has a position, they are discounting the position of others out there who may not attend in terms of what, sort of things, themes, ideas they want to see for the river. And I think the safest thing for this body to do is to not react to the people sitting here who boo Paul when he says his comments, but to take no action, because I think at the end of the day, nothing is going to happen until we get the studies back anyways. There's no risk of something getting developed. There's nothing been approved. In point of fact, I mean, the publication of the two deals has been, more from the people who have objected to it than the people who have been a proponent of it or even analyzing it up here. So from my perspective, I think Paul's right. I think that if we do nothing, then none of the constituencies are insulted by our action. I think if we do nothing, then at least, we should tell the submitters that there is going to be a significant amount of time before they get any reaction from us. And I want to hear that from you, Derek. I assume then, we decide that studies are going to happen, there's no communication with the submitters.
I don't see why there would be any need to at this time, so.
None, right?
None, right.
So from my perspective, I would let them sit.
Thank you, Todd. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so I think that the idea that, just because feedback has been, say, conflicted at times for some, like, it was a request for concepts. We got feedback, we got concepts. We heard loud and clear from certain people, hey, I don't like the idea of a significant apartment building down here. Hey, I don't like the idea of a high-density hotel commercial space. Like, that's what a request for concepts do. You're getting people to say, what do you like, what don't you like? And somewhere along this process, we have gotten off track of worrying about all these different things that what we were asked to do is to find out, do you like this concept or not? Okay? I don't know if we now need to take an extra step to tell these developers, hey, you need to go away, you've been rejected. We saw your presentation. There's no vote coming from this body because there's no consensus on picking one of these. Now, a second question about opening it up to other developers, reissuing it, I think those are fair questions. But in this particular case, I'm not wild about going the extra step just because we feel like, hey, you know what? We need to send an additional message. We got the concepts. It doesn't have consensus up here to even pick a developer and move forward. That's where we're at, and we're moving on to the next subject. So I don't see the point of having to put in this extra step when we've already made it clear there is no consensus to pick a developer.
Rita, go ahead.
Yeah, 2 points. To Ed and Paul and Todd and Ryan, why not return it? Why not? And secondly, instead of, it sounds so harsh, instead of a note of rejection, I believe I said, why not return all submitted plans with an invitation to resubmit? Put them in a folder, I don't care, change them or don't change them, and then along with then we put out an invitation, and along with other new proposals, once new guidelines on feasibility have been developed, bring them back in. So I need to know why not return them.
Why so then? So are we,
So that we can,
but are we now saying that, so from any time that the P&D committee meets, and we have somebody come with a concept plan, that we're now going to say, not only if we don't have a consensus to move forward for a vote, we're also then going to schedule or tell staff to send them a rejection letter?
no, I said not a rejection letter.
Or, I mean, whatever it might be.
Yeah, return, we've done it all the time.
Right.
Well, whether
We did it to Casey. We do it all the time.
We had a separate vote, Chair?
No, we know,
No, we up here had, there was not support to move
similar
forward.
conversation, there wasn't support to move forward, so, you know,
But did we send them, did we go this extra step to say to
or
Casey?
did they pull them on their own? They pulled them on their own.
I don't think that really is a good analogy because
They pulled
right
it on
now,
their
there's
own.
nothing that's been, so Casey's was proposing something to us for our
Right,
site.
right, okay, so it's a bad
Different
example, but I'm just saying to say that this is out of the blue and never been done, I think.
It's your time, so I'm just asking in response.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I can tell you the way that I think about it is it's just how government works. Things die in committee all the time. I mean, literally, it's outside of the process to take an action that isn't an action. I mean, in government, everything, if you don't get a proposal to move forward, I mean, on every level of government, things just die in committee and then you're done. I mean, that's just how it works. I would hate to set a precedent. Okay, so I can say that I don't want to posture. Like, I'm not going to ever be in favor of taking a negative action on something that we're not going to do. I think that there's more room for bad government if you start walking down that vein than just, not do anything. There's nothing called for. Thank you.
Okay.
It's your time.
No, Ryan wanted to make.
I want to ask a question. So is there a concern that because we don't formally take action removing these, that somehow it's going to get passed in the middle of the night?
We're not asking you.
Yeah.
We're asking Alderman Bailey.
I
know
think,
you guys are.
I guess why not have that peace of mind? Why not, and if it's a peace of mind of the residents, so be it, but if it's a peace of mind that, okay, we're going to start over. It's kind of a starting over. And if you're starting over, you're not starting over if you've got, you know, two plans in the wings that may or may not work with our new studies. That's not starting over. So I guess, are we starting over or aren't we?
David, go ahead.
So Ryan's comment too, and kind of dovetailing with Rita said too, my rationale, I would say it's not involving necessarily that there's no consensus here for those two concepts. I think to Rita's point, or kind of dovetailing on that, if we're getting feasibility, if we're, you know, getting more data and we're starting that anew, why not? In terms of, you know, rebooting or restarting. And again, I think it really does come down to language as well. It's not a rejection. It's an invitation to return within the guise of this new data and
resubmit.
information.
Right.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelmer.
Hey, Derek, did either developer resubmit or make any changes to their proposals after the presentations? They resubmitted dramatic changes based on the feedback.
They have made revisions after presentations, but they have not made any for months now. Since October, there haven't been any changes at all.
Right? Yeah. So for me, it's like I need to understand the feasibility study is a greens fee to the R fee. So I can't tell you whether or not those proposals match the facts and the data that go along with that study, right? And I'll be honest, coming out of that presentation, I was a little disappointed. I didn't hear a lot of the due diligence I'd expect to have heard coming out of those sessions. So for me, I think, number one, we're saying the developers are still in, and after we get through this study, they're welcome to resubmit either the exact same proposals if they meet the criteria, or something totally different if they want to. That's up to them, right? So for me, it's rejecting the proposals as they stand, pending the feasibility study, and then allowing them to come back and resubmit if they want to within the means of that study. Does that make sense?
Ron?
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. A lot of interesting comments here. I'll just say a few things. First off, on the meaning of trust, okay, I've talked to people, and if we remember correctly, this was back in October, this was going to be decided in a period of 2 weeks. Luckily, we stopped that process. So that's where the trust comes in. We were going to ram this through in a period of 2 weeks. Yes, Todd, that was true. Don't give me that eye look. I can show you the agenda
No, I
where
get
it
to make
says,
whatever face I want to make, Ron.
okay,
No, he's not.
okay. So, that's what the issue of the trust is about. We were trying to run this through real quick. Luckily, we pulled it back, and now we're taking our time doing it. It's a good thing. The second thing with the RFPs, I see no reason why we should keep these two. I mean, we're going to have a new RFP come out in the end. It's not going to meet what we have already here. Plus, and I'll go back to what I've said before, when we put out this RFP, we had developers that did not follow it. There's no trust issue right there. So I have no problem with starting over completely. If they want to resubmit, more power to them. I'll go in and look at every developer, what I do any other developer. I'll give them equal amount of respect. But to say that we should keep these on is wrong. I can't see doing that. I think we should vote just to start the process over again after we get the study done, and we'll see what we can and can't build there. Maybe we can't build a hotel there. Okay, but ultimately it's our decision up here. I mean, I've listened to all the residents, and 95% of them don't want this project. We're supposed to listen to the residents. For the ones, please, for the ones that don't comment, I can't hope that. This is a republic here. We listen to what we hear. If people don't want to say, hey, you're wrong, then I have to go by the people who say, yes, I agree with you. And so I think we should start over again.
Okay. So there's 23,000 registered voters in St. Charles, right? I represent the 5th ward. Everyone represents different wards. There's obviously been one ward that's been extremely vocal, and we have 100% listened. All of us have listened. You know, the original thing that we would have been voting on anyways was just to pick a developer.
That's right.
Never the project that was
No, but
presented,
pick a
you're right.
developer,
right?
You're right.
We
Pick a developer. We were going to run that through in a period of 2 weeks.
We were just going to pick a developer though, right?
Right, but out of the 4, we're going to go from 4 to 1 in 2 weeks.
I just want to make sure that everyone, we're all.
No, you're right. That's exactly what's going to happen.
So there's not confusion or people are pointing fingers. It was just to pick a developer. It's a pretty mixed bag up here as far as, you know, who wants to do what? You're looking for direction from us, yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Do we need to vote? I'll make a motion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, can we vote on this? I mean, it seems a little,
So if we were to vote on this, would you like to, how would you like to present it?
yeah. We got a motion.
I have a motion.
Yeah.
Can I make my motion?
Make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to return all submitted plans with an invitation to resubmit, along with other new proposals once new guidelines on feasibility have been developed.
Second.
So moved by David Petrilla, seconded by Brian Wirball. Let's go ahead and do a roll call on that.
Sokaitis,
Yes.
Calamera,
Yes.
Payleitner,
Yes.
Bongard,
Yes.
Bancroft,
Yes.
Lencioni,
Yep.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Bessner.
No.
Okay, so there you go. The proposals will be returned. With that, we're now going to move on to public comment. If you have a comment to make, just please state your name, and we'll go and listen. Go ahead, man. Please step up. Yes, please step to the podium. Just state your name.
No address.
Christine Fulton, I live in Ward 3. I met with Paul and Todd on this issue, and I appreciate them meeting with me. My question will circle back to, and I've heard it in different depths, how are you getting community input? And if I hear one more time, I talk to residents, that falls flat. And maybe it goes to the confidence, Paul, of, and Todd, we talked about it. Are you going to do a survey? Are you going to online say, what do we want of a list of choices? You did one with the bicycle and the walk path. Great idea. You asked. That was hugely credible to a resident here to feel like we have a voice. Doesn't mean we're going to get what we want, but you asked. And it was done with the purpose to say, we're going to take that data, we have heard you, here is what we're going to tell you that we've heard. And I don't see that communication, and we talked about that. Well, that's not our job. You elected me, I represent you, and we had a good discussion on it. And I still don't see a formal communication path where you are asking the residents for their input.
Yeah.
So that you are fully informed.
So I'd like to, let me respond to that question. So, because I think that your characterization of the conversation, I'd like to tweak just a little bit.
Sure.
Because the question was asked, wouldn't we just throw this out to basically like a referendum?
No, I did not bring that up at all.
Ask that question, that's what I heard.
Okay.
But that's not, what I was explaining was not that we don't want community input. What I was explaining was, that's not how this is going to be decided. It's going to be decided through the normal course of government with elected officials. That doesn't mean that we don't want, right. That doesn't mean that we don't want community input. It's just not going to be the subject of a referendum.
We didn't even discuss the R word. So I'm still going to ask, how does this council within your ward gather public comment?
Mr. Chairman?
That's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, just bringing it up. No, I appreciate it. And I you know, I know plenty of people in this room, and I talk to them in different respects, but, you know, we all make our efforts. But, I mean, in surveying, you know, a lot of the surveys were done in connection with a comprehensive plan, and there's a systematic way that we try and do things, because, you know, I mean, how many of the agenda items that are here, and how do you decide, and how does it work on what you take a survey for and how that happens? And, you know, aldermen make decisions about, you know, how's the best way to get in touch with what the people work. Is it my ward and what's not? And every 4 years, we're all up to see, did we do a good job? You know, so I appreciate the comment, you know, and I think that we're all, I will tell you, I'm doing my best, and we're all doing our best, but there's, you know, it's not a pure democracy. You know, we have public comment. There's a lot of different ways to happen. And I mean, I really want to say this. You know, I come out here to do, and I'm speaking for myself, my job, because I care about all of you, whether you want to believe it or not. You know, I wouldn't let anybody, like, you know, I'm not going to bandwagon one way or the other. I'm always going to try and make the objective decisions, and I'm always going to listen. You know, and so I feel like we have been listening. But to speak to that, also, you know, like, you know, as a city formally on certain agenda items on that one to do a survey, I mean, we all have to decide how we're going to do that. But I also take the comment and appreciate it and listen, because I think we're all trying to figure out the best way to do it. You know, but we do come up with passion and care for all of you, speaking for myself and the people that I know. So I hope you think about that as we all talk to each other.
Go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, to that point, I'm going to refer to staff. We did when the police department site became available, we did do an addendum to our comprehensive plan with a lot of community input. Now, since then, we've got new information. But just so you know, we started and we had that. Correct, Russ? When was that? That was
2020 was when that was done.
2020, thank you. Yeah, so we did have, and it was in this building, and it was, you know, very public forum, and we did an addition to our comp plan to include, you know, people's ideas for that stuff. So, yeah.
Well, so you and I talked, and I think this goes to some of your comments are going, but you and I have talked so many times over the last 2 years, and it's been invaluable, about the role of council is to drive strategic plan and vision. What do we think the best use is? That's a direct extension of residents. So this project, while it's been frustrating at times and back and forth, it's not a question for, you know, what the mayor supports, what a developer wants to do, what's the feasibility. Bottom line, it starts with the 10 people that are sitting up here and everybody out there. And if we need to take a step back and talk more about it, but that's the most important thing that I take away. We've been talking about that, you know, we've talked about that for months of, hey, how do we find what works for the most, you know, for everybody? And I know that people buy into that, and I just hope that everybody else out there understands that as well. That's the role of this council for that space.
It's definitely, it's a two-way street, right? There's multiple ways that we can reach out to all the constituents and the residents of the neighborhood, but it's obviously very important that, you know, people have to engage too. We can only do so much. It needs to be both ways. So, you know, meetings like this, when we get the emails, we do read all the emails. I can promise you that. There's not an email I don't read, because I do care. I don't ever want to be caught off guard. I want to know what people's input is. So we do listen. Trust me. Yes. Go ahead, sir. Just state your name.
Thank you. Mike Canute, 112
We don't
North
need your
Fifth
address
Avenue.
anymore.
Thank you, Alderman Weber. And just so I'm clear, I want to be sure I heard correctly before I make my very brief comments tonight. I believe you all just voted in favor of returning the
That's
two
correct.
concepts on the table.
That's correct.
Doing the studies with an invitation to the developers to
That's correct.
resubmit it. Okay, I thought that's what I
And
wanted
if
to
I could
make
just clarify too, that will have to go to formal city council action because this is just a committee recommendation.
sure. Thank you. I want to thank the city council and all of the members here tonight for reaching that conclusion and for listening to the great amount, I believe, the great amount of input that we have brought. And I want to make just a couple of brief comments. I know that at the October 10th meeting, which is the first time I spoke at one of these meetings, and the first time that was when the developers made their presentation, there was quite a bit of public comment. Following that meeting, Mayor Vitek said publicly in a public statement that this is prime property in the heart of our downtown. We want to get this right. And for myself and the Citizens for Responsible Development and my neighbors, my friends, the people who I'm up here speaking on behalf of, that's all we've been trying to do is to get this right. So when we've done things like bring you input from others in the community, bring you the petitions, which are, even today, we're still getting signatures on our petitions, if you can believe that. We're close to 2,000 signatures. We're making sure you see the comments online that are being gathered, and we send those to you so that you can get the input of people who don't necessarily come to these meetings. And I know I have, and others in the community have visited with many of you in person to make sure you fully understand where we're coming from and what we're trying to achieve. So I just want to thank you and commend you for taking all of that into consideration. I personally was encouraged by the debate and the discussion which you had here tonight, and I do believe that does restore a lot of people's faith in their local government. I think that if you are having a discussion about whether or not there's a trust issue, there is a bit of a trust issue. So I think it's good that these things get aired out. One other comment, I do think that the people who do show up and make themselves heard at meetings like this, and the people who do send emails to the city, they are voicing their opinion. And while there are people who are not voicing their opinion, to give them equal weight when you don't know what they're going to say, I don't think is valid. That's like saying, I know people voted for you, but there may be others out there who didn't vote, so we need to respect them as well. That's not how it works. The voters win. So we did try to make ourselves known. That was our purpose, and I'm very happy that we were able to point. I do believe that with the feasibility studies that will be conducted and that the additional input you'll receive on future concepts, future proposals, that you all and future city council members will come up with a development, a building, something on the old police station site that is appropriate for that site, that respects our river and actually enhances our downtown. And I look forward in the future to seeing a project like that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Just your name.
Paul McMahon, 3rd and Chestnut. I absolutely agree with all of you tonight talking about the need to study, and I do know that the need to study is dependent on what the end goals might be. We talk about how to get those kinds of ideas. A referendum by the community is a good idea. Back in August, a room bigger than this, the Baker Center, is a very large room. The 5-year strategic planning group paid a consulting group to come in from Colorado to ask people's opinions. People's opinions back then talked about respecting the river. It's the crown jewel of St. Charles that makes St. Charles unique. The concept, the takeaway from that meeting with a large amount of people, more people there than are here tonight, talked about respecting the river and low-rise. Any building would be low-rise architecture would complement the river. None of the proposals, neither of the proposals that are here that are being discussed tonight or that have been proposed meet those requirements, meet that discussion. You talk about 23,000 voters. Mike made a comment that we have 2,000 signatures right now that are St. Charles voters and residents. I think that's a huge amount of residents that are speaking. 2,000 residents, and we haven't begun. That's only been in the last 6 weeks. If you disagree with me?
Well, just for the record, I did get an email of a I don't know, an Excel spreadsheet of about 1,200 or 1,100 names that were signed.
Yes.
We did a quick cut at just zip codes. My Excel skills may be challenged, I will grant that. But I only counted 500 and change.
Okay, so you're way off. We've got 3 petitions going. One is a paper petition.
I only received one, and I'm not way off. I
Well, I'm
meant what I
telling you,
just said was true.
They're all stakeholders, they're all residents. We have 1,587 signatures that are on online petition. We have another 500 petition signatures that wrote to a paper petition. We have a third petition's got 103. So the 3 of them in total are approaching 2,000. A lot of you have been elected to this office with less than 2,000 votes in your wards. 2,000 signatures on a petition is a huge amount of public opinion.
I'm just telling you, that's not what I received.
Okay, well, you're wrong, and we can meet with that, and we can talk about that.
I'm not wrong. I know what I got.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Gary Swick. I was here a month ago representing Friends of the Fox River, and in conclusion, I said I look forward to the time when I come back and can herald the city of St. Charles for doing something really good. And I'm back already, so that was a surprise to me. So thank you for taking pause and thinking more deeply and studying things more and listening to people. We made great progress in 50 years in restoring the watershed, but it's under a lot of threats, and we're losing prime farmland and sacrificing riverfront properties. So thank you for being a good model, for taking your time and thinking and listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, that completes, go ahead, sir.
Brian Ketter, I live downtown, and I'm hearing this about respect the river, right? You're either putting impermeable surface along the river or you're not. So low-rise building is not respecting the river. I don't even understand that. You want to respect the river, do what's best for the climate. What's best for the climate is density, all right? I'm actually shocked that we got to this point, and we don't know what the traffic is. I crunched some numbers because all this is available. We're talking less than 1% traffic increase down here with a 200-unit place. So you could
just
but you know, but the thing is that's reality, right? So either we're going to put a park there, which respects the river, right? Because that's being a good neighbor to the downstate communities. We're going to give the river a place to go when it floods, right? Building a low-rise building instead of density, which gives us the downtown amenities we want, right? We don't have the businesses we want for this is not a full functioning downtown. It doesn't have the things for it doesn't have a pharmacy. Obviously the grocery store is gone, right? And part of that is density.
Currently.
And right. Hopefully something comes back, right? But that's a density issue, right? So if we want these amenities of living downtown, we got to have amenities. We got to have density. If we care about the river, then let's put a park here. You know what, let's return that to wetland. I'm still shocked that we put a parking lot in over here, changing the subject, that's not brick. We put an impermeable surface on the river. We're not good friends of the river. And if you're coming here telling me that we're friends of the Fox means putting more impermeable surfaces down, you're kidding yourself, right? Either we want what's good for the environment, or we want what's good for the downtown. And I'm not hearing either of those things from this group. I'm hearing, I don't want anything that interrupts my $1 million home up on top of on the park. That's what I'm hearing. Or I don't want additional traffic. If you care about traffic, you know, if traffic's your concern, then why don't we get the police department to slow traffic down? When's the last time we ran, the police department had some people walk into a crosswalk and ticketed people who didn't observe that crosswalk? Who's crossed the road here to go to the concert at the park and practically got run down week after week? I get killed biking to school practically every week. This past Thursday, a woman in a Lexus talking to her phone like somehow this makes it legal, right? Almost runs me down. But again, I don't even cross purposes here, right? We either want density or we want impermeable surfaces. But all I'm hearing is we just want what's best for me, right? And this is, hey, if we don't like what this body does, we vote them out, period, right? I agree. We elected you to make the decisions, right? Please do. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
Alex Walker, 4th Ward. So just kind of echoing Brian's comments, more people downtown, in my opinion, more better, right? Put it very simply. Like Brian said, you put more people down here, makes the city better, more density, more people. I moved to St. Charles from out of state because we liked what the city was doing, right? So we want to continue to live here. I want to continue to be able to walk downtown, to go to restaurants. we need more people downtown to be able to support that. I understand people are concerned about parking, but it kind of is what it is with a city like this. You're gonna live downtown. You want to live around here, you're gonna have to walk. I walked here. I didn't drive. So it is what it is. It's and I'm also warning you guys why we're taking so long. So I did the math in my head. So it sounds like nothing's going to happen until 2024 potentially, right? So we have developers that want to spend combined, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's kind of interesting that we're just going to say, oh, just put that money in your back pocket and wait around. So who knows in 3 or 4 years if that money is even going to be available or if anyone's going to want to develop that property. So it seems kind of short-sighted that we're just going to, I understand doing your due diligence, that's a failure of leadership, not necessarily against this body, but the city in general. You knew that property was going to be vacated at a certain point when you proposed to build a new police station. So why weren't these studies with the ground and the utilities done 4 years ago to figure out what was going to happen here? So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. I know, yeah, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you very much. And I guess because you guys have talked and, I guess this is the time, and so want to talk back. And I want to encourage the people in this room to kind of listen, because we're all here and we hear a lot of things from, both sides of the conversation, and to assume that we're not listening because you guys are talking to each other. But we have all kinds of conversations that we're hearing. So when you question who you're trusting, I ask you, ask from yourself the same thing that we're asking from us, because we are doing our best for you. We do deserve your trust. That's 100%, because there are comments on both sides. For a ton of my career, I've talked to more people every day in St. Charles than anybody else in this community, with doors wide open at a supermarket. To say that there's one opinion about what we should ever do, that's false. So just, take a look, slow down a little bit. It is reasonable to trust us. This is happening a reasonable way, and ask a lot from yourselves as we go through this as well, because it takes a little bit of courage to sit and listen to people that you don't agree with. But if we're not going to trust each other as a community, that's where the real trouble is. We'll just go through the process. It won't be easy, but just keep at it, but ask more for yourself, and instead of laughing at people who are up doing a tough job as they're here, that's an easy thing to do, but it's not fair. It's not reasonable, But I also don't hold that against anybody, and neither does anybody else up here. We ask for the tough jobs, and I promise, if you take a look at my vote, and that's really what I wanted to explain. I voted for something that I didn't think was necessary because I'm supporting the people up here, because we're a group and sometimes we have to support each other. When you see, okay, that's what people want to do, I support you. We are listening. Do not forget that. And ask from yourself the same things you ask from us, because this isn't going to be easy, because there are great arguments that have from a lot of different perspectives. Just imagine that's true. Thank you.
Go ahead, Todd.
So just some comments to the two gentlemen that made their comments. First, I don't think you should interpret studies as a no vote on density. I'm hopeful that won't be the case. I think that there's a lot of things to look at and a lot of questions to be answered. I think that, second, there was a lot of things that went into getting out the RFC, and the RFC was supposed to be really the first step in what was an investigation. What will people build there? What will the private sector contribute to this? So we got the answer, and then you started getting all of this reaction. So I think you had some split on your council. Going back into the study is the prudent thing to do. But at the end of the day, the next step in this process should not be interpreted as an indictment against density, because it's not. We're going to work through all of that. And second, you're right. If you're not going to have density, you might as well have a park. No question about it.
All right. With that, I'm closing public comment. Any additional items from mayor, council, or staff? Seeing none, I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn. No need for an executive session, obviously. I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Lencioni, second by Wirball. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
One day. Hey.